global health supply chains are being subtly reshaped by a pharmaceutical partnership. Ottawa is constructing a bridge over the Atlantic to Spain, a pioneer in biotech, generics, and sophisticated medicine production, while Washington advocates for tariffs and adheres to American regulations. We're going to look at the reasons behind Canada's partnership with Spain today. It's not just regarding medicine. In the increasingly fierce competition for health security, it's a planned move. Can the United States afford to remain on the sidelines? That is the true question. Greetings from Geoc Capitalist, where we unravel the secrets of world wealth, one change in power at a time. Should you wish to sense the major economic shifts of future are already occurring today, be sure to subscribe now to gain an understanding of the true factors influencing trade, healthcare, and finance. Why Spain? Spain is a quiet giant in the pharmaceutical industry, despite not making as many headlines as France or Germany. As the fourth largest pharmaceutical company in Europe, Spain is a pharmaceutical exporter to over 170 nations. Its facilities focus on biotech innovations, vaccines, and generic medications, all of which have a direct influence on the resilience and cost of healthcare systems around the globe. For Canada, a country that has long battled with growing medicine prices, and Spain is more than just a trading partner when it comes to excessive dependence on U.S. suppliers. Diversifying access and lowering vulnerability is crucial. Spain adds credibility beyond capacity. Research centers in Barcelona and Madrid spur innovation in plasma-derived medications, while multinational corporations like Grifols are at the forefront of cancer and uncommon illnesses. While it frequently lacks large-scale manufacturing, Canada is home to top-tier clinical research and biotechnology startups. Together, the two countries enhance each other's advantages: Spanish industrial power and Canadian science. The healthcare system in Canada is one of its most distinctive characteristics and a major source of economic strain. Ottawa is under tremendous pressure to reconsider the sourcing of medications due to aging populations, rising expenses, and prescription shortages. According to a 2024 Health Canada report, antibiotic shortages affected more than 30% of vital medications. To therapies for cancer, local demand isn't the only factor. It is dependent on structure. The United States is the major source of pharmaceutical imports into Canada, which imports about 70% of its medications. That reliance has turned into a strategic susceptibility. American regulations pushed by Washington have frequently interfered with Canadians' access to reasonably priced medications. U.S. officials have taken action to limit exports during previous supply chain crises, giving priority to domestic need. This served as a wake-up call for policymakers in Canada. Over-reliance on a single provider, even one that is an ally, exposes the system. Higher medicine costs and delays in access to life-saving treatments have an immediate effect on patients. Spain comes into play at this point. Ottawa is aware of that getting a second anchor supplier in Europe gives you leverage in addition to stabilizing access. Canada can shift its focus to Spain's industrial base if U.S. companies attempt to increase prices or restrict exports. It's a clear political statement. Canada will no longer allow its sovereignty over healthcare to be dependent on just one neighbor. Ottawa benefits from stability, competitive price, and a steady supply of medications by diversifying through Spain. That implies fewer shocks from global trade fights and a lower chance of empty drugstore shelves for regular Canadians. For Ottawa, it serves as evidence that in addition to policy changes, geopolitics can be used to increase healthcare security. When people think about pharmaceutical giants, Spain may not immediately spring to mind, yet it is undoubtedly one of the most powerful countries in Europe. The nation is one of the top 5 EU producers of pharmaceuticals, with around $25 billion in yearly production and a significant increase in global exports after 2020. Actually, Spain is currently a major provider of innovative biologics, vaccines, and generic medications, many of which are sold throughout Europe, Latin America, and now more and more North America. One of Spain's distinct advantages resides in its capacity to blend affordable production with top-notch research. In addition to developing innovative biotech and plasma-based treatments, businesses like Grifo, ROI, and Almirall have expanded their manufacturing at costs that are lower than those of conventional U.S. and Swiss suppliers. Spain is therefore a desirable partner. For Canada, where access to reasonably priced generic medications is a government goal and healthcare funds are being strained, Spain is even more powerful because of its ties to the EU. Canadian consumers already take advantage of lower tariffs and more efficient trade procedures under the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA, regulatory routes for drugs in Europe. Canada is leveraging a sector with complete EU regulatory conformity by strengthening its connections with Spain in particular, which will facilitate the flow of approvals from Madrid into Ottawa. Resilience is another factor that goes beyond the numbers. Since CO-19 revealed Europe's dependence on Asia for essential pharmaceutical chemicals, Spain has made significant investments in domestic supply chains. Canada is putting itself in a position to avoid the disruptions that have recently beset global health systems by obtaining a piece of that more regional EU-based supply chain. Meanwhile, Spain is becoming into Canada offers an opportunity to lock in a new transatlantic partner and diversify away from its conventional EU and Latin American markets. Washington pays attention to any changes in Canada's trade habits. The U.S. has dominated Canada's pharmaceutical supply for many years, holding close to 40% of the market of goods brought into the nation. But there are weaknesses in that domination. Supply chain bottlenecks, high prices, and patent conflicts frequently put Canadian patients at risk of shortages. Ottawa is subtly decreasing that reliance by turning its attention to Spain. The U.S. is concerned about more than just missing sales. For North American pharmaceutical companies to preserve economies of scale, Canadian buyers are crucial. U.S. suppliers risk losing not only money, but also negotiating power with authorities in both nations if Spain begins to fulfill those commitments. The moment is especially delicate. Washington is stepping up American provisions for healthcare products in 2025, while Canadian hospitals find it more difficult to obtain timely and reasonably priced supplies due to the same regulations. Additionally, there is a symbolic component. A message is sent by Canada's decision to strengthen its ties with Madrid. The automatic default is no longer U.S. products. Additionally, because Spain is a part of the EU, the action shows that Ottawa is more eager to broaden its alliances, even if doing so annoys Washington. The United States may protest, but Canada is exercising a right it hasn't always had because of the fragmentation of global supply chains. Strategic autonomy in the purchase of medical care. The true story is economic, not merely diplomatic. According to analysts, Canada and Spain's new pharmaceutical framework may open, depending on the speed at which regulatory approvals scale. Trade might reach between 1.5 and 2 billion euros per year by 2026. For Canada, this entails having access to less expensive generic medications and specialized therapies, which are expected to save public healthcare budgets between 5 and 10%. A significant victory in a nation where political discourse is influenced by cost effectiveness. The advantages for Spain are equally clear. Canada is an undersupplied, stable, and affluent market. This is precisely the kind of post-pandemic expansion that European pharmaceutical companies are looking for. Spain's long-standing supplies to Latin America may be matched by exports to Canada by 2026. This presents a chance for businesses like Grifols, which are already leaders in blood plasma treatments, to enter Canadian research hospitals and establish enduring clinical alliances. These figures are increased by the cited advantage. Its structure essentially eliminates tariffs and streamlines regulatory procedures because it applies to both Canada and Spain. Because of this, Spanish companies can more easily outbid American suppliers who have to deal with more expensive and rigid bilateral procedures. When combined, the figures show a subtle but significant change. Spain gains a portal to North America in addition to a new market. In turn, Canada secures supply chain resiliency and cost savings. Additionally, each euro that flows undermines U.S. supremacy in one of the world economy's most lucrative areas on the other side of the Atlantic. This goes beyond Canada and Spain. Notes are being taken by other European capitals. Canada is viewed as a fruitful ground for the sophisticated pharmaceutical businesses of France, Germany, and Italy. Growth. These players will probably follow if Spain demonstrates that the model is effective. This might further shift the balance away from U.S. supremacy by causing a wave of EU suppliers to enter the Canadian market. There are also repercussions throughout Asia. Major pharmaceutical exporters South Korea and Japan are keeping a careful eye on Canada's rate of diversification. A successful agreement with Spain shows that Ottawa is willing to expand its healthcare relationships, which will put U.S. companies that previously had almost exclusive access in competition. In the meanwhile, producers in Latin America can feel pinched, especially in Brazil and Mexico. Some suppliers in emerging markets may find it challenging to achieve the stricter regulatory standards imposed by Canada's closer alignment with the EU. In addition to raising the standard for international competition that enhances Canada's standing as a premium market that is driven by norms. Even in Europe, Sweden and Denmark might see pharmaceuticals as the next big thing after their recent energy and technological partnerships with Canada. To put it briefly, this is not a one-time offer. Canada is reorienting itself strategically to serve as a conduit between European innovation and demand for healthcare in North America. The world is listening too. There is more to the relationship between Canada and Spain than just economy. Deeper trade links have been made possible by the steady growth in academic and cultural exchanges over the last 10 years. Taking advantage of Canada's robust clinical trial infrastructure, Spanish pharmaceutical corporations have collaborated with Canadian academic institutions in fields such as neuroscience, oncology, and rare diseases. Another layer is added via migration. There are already thousands of Spanish professionals working, ranging from engineers to medical specialists, in Canada with assistance from bilateral CETA mobility agreements. This talent transfer facilitates supply chain integration and builds institutional trust. For younger generations, Spanish graduates looking for employment in Canada are increasingly choosing to life sciences and biotechnology. Culture and tourism are important as well. Spanish is Canada's third most spoken foreign language, and more Canadian students are studying abroad in Barcelona and Madrid. These interpersonal relationships foster familiarity and lessen conflict. When governments negotiate delicate agreements with pharmaceutical companies, where patient safety and trust requirements are crucial until cultural congruence becomes just as significant as the agreements themselves. In the end, these connections strengthen the deal's longevity. This is not a business transaction. Concur. It is the continuation of a larger transatlantic alliance based on common ideals of openness, sustainability, and creativity. Additionally, those ideals might be the glue that keeps the Canada-Spain alliance strong despite political challenges in a world where healthcare is a global competitiveness. Headwinds. There is much more to the Canada-Spain pharmaceutical alliance than just medication. It's an indication of intent, a proclamation that Ottawa will not be constrained by custom or geography. As Canada strengthened its defense and clean energy partnerships with Sweden and Denmark, it is now establishing a biotech and health bridge to Spain. These transactions collectively outline a trend. By forming a variety of strategic partnerships around Europe, Canada is less dependent on Washington overall. The collaboration establishes Madrid as a transatlantic hub for Spain. Connection. Introducing large-scale European innovation to North American consumers. It demonstrates the importance of regulatory consistency and the power of CETA for the entire European Union. Additionally, it serves as a warning to the U.S. that its long-held hold on Canadian markets is eroding one industry at a time. Analysts predict that drugs are only the beginning. The Canada-Spain axis may branch out into digital health, medical technology, and biotech. Over the next 10 years, all industries are expected to increase at an exponential rate. As this collaboration develops, it will change not only Canadian healthcare, but also the geopolitics of international trading and health. We and the rest of the world are watching. If this explanation was helpful to you, check out our next video. It has a direct bearing on what is happening. Remember to subscribe as well. We can decipher these worldwide trends without compromising thanks to your backing. Tell us in the comment section, is this the beginning of a long-term pharmaceutical realignment, or is Canada just diversifying? The world is watching either way. For this reason, Canada and Spain are collaborating, and the US is unable to stop it. Thank you for observing, and we'll talk to you in the following video.